Hello and welcome to Blytheway Business News. Today I'm joined by Dr. Stephen Barnhill. Dr. Barnhill is the Managing Director of Apollon. Apollon is a cannabis company which has just announced its intention to float on the London stock market on the IQUIS segment of the market. We'll be getting to that part later on in the interview, but first of all, Stephen, welcome to the show. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What's your background and how did you get into this whole area of medical cannabis?
Well, thank you, Tim. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Well, my background is that I am a medical doctor. I have been for about 35 years and trained specifically in clinical pathology and clinical laboratory medicine. The bulk of my career has been as chairman and CEO of both public and private companies, and specializing mostly in biotechnology and in pharma. The primary focus of my work throughout most of my career has been in the use of artificial intelligence techniques as applied to cancer diagnostics. We have done deals in the past with Pfizer, with Abbott, with Quest Diagnostics, with LabCorp, and primarily working with other doctors from Johns Hopkins, MD Anderson Cancer Center in Stanford. And in 2012, I retired, and that's what led me into medical cannabis. In 2013, my mother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and I had no experience in medical cannabis at that time. But one of the best pancreatic cancer doctors in the United States was her doctor, and he was using a special drug on her that only he was allowed to use because of the clinical trial called paclitaxel. It's now approved by the FDA for pancreatic cancer. But though she was getting better from the chemotherapy, she was unable to eat for about 3.5 months. She had intractable nausea, lost down to 88 pounds, and we had her on parenteral nutrition and decided that, we had to figure out what we were going to do to get her to be able to eat. So I called the doctors and I said, look, if we can't get her to eat, we're going to lose her from starvation and not pancreatic cancer. And much to my surprise, they said, try medical cannabis. And I was surprised. And I said, my mother's 76 years old. She's not going to smoke weed. And he said, no, you're going to use a medical device. It's a vape system. Don't tell her what's in it because you don't want to bias her. Just see if it works. I was willing to do anything to try to save her life. So we gave her a vape of medical cannabis in a device that looks much like what COPD and asthma patients use. We didn't tell her what it was. And 10 minutes after she got it, she looked at me and said, my nausea's gone. And about 10 minutes after that, she asked if she could eat. And she began eating, and I continued to vape her 3 times a day before each meal. And in the first week, we got 3 pounds on her, and she went back for additional chemotherapy, still quite weak, but it was a good start. And the nurse gave her apple juice in a cup instead of through a straw, and she aspirated on the apple juice, and she died of aspiration pneumonia 3 days later. And that's when I realized that if medical cannabis, if I had known about this treatment 3 months before, she may have been able to finish her treatment and done well with the disease. So I decided to come out of retirement and devote the rest of my life to studying the true science of medical cannabis. Is it real, or was this a fluke? How do we prove it in clinical trials? How do we keep a consistent dose if it works? And so I brought many members of my old team back, and we decided to embark on this journey with medical cannabis. And I have been specializing in cannabinoid medicine now for about 8 years since her death.
And is that essentially entirely focused on the treatment of cancers, or are you going any wider than that?
Yes, it is not just the treatment of cancers. We do treat many patients with cancer. We also treat patients with ulcerative colitis. We treat patients with opioid addiction. We treat patients with anxiety, with chronic pain. There are many uses for medical cannabis, and we treat patients with all of those conditions.
I want to talk later on about how you're developing the various formulations, but let's just stay with the origins of the company for a while. As I understand it, Apollon is based in Jamaica. So tell us what you do in Jamaica, please.
Yes, it's based in Jamaica, and the reason for that is because in 2015, I was considered one of the experts in medical cannabis, and not because I'm so smart, but because there were very few people working in this space in 2015. And Jamaica was getting ready to go federally legal for medical cannabis. And so I was asked to come down to Jamaica and give a talk at the medical school about medical cannabis. And my partner, Dr. Herb Fritchie, who is a 42-year professor at MD Anderson Cancer Center, he and I went down and spoke at the medical school down there. The next day, we were asked if we would consider moving to Jamaica and opening a treatment facility that could treat patients legally in a federal legal environment with medical doctors that were licensed to write prescriptions for medical cannabis. And we thought about it, and we thought, you know, if we're really going to get the answers we're searching for, which is whether this is real or not, that's the environment we needed. And so I moved down to Jamaica in 2015, and we set up our first treatment facility. And we have been working in Jamaica ever since, fully regulated, fully licensed to operate in that country.
Now, as your research and development license allows you to actually, I suppose, undertake drug discovery using THC, which is the psychoactive component of cannabis. I'm not aware of many companies which are actually allowed to do that.
That's correct. And because we're vertically licensed, we can do cultivation, we can do our own processing of the oil, we can manufacture our own products. And because of this R&D license, as you point out, we can also treat patients. We also have a therapeutic dispensary, and the therapeutic license allows us to also apply the medicine. So this gives us a very unique opportunity to be able to actually treat patients, collect the data on that treatment. Because we have a full medical staff, we also do the laboratory work for follow-up on these patients. We do the x-ray work for follow-up on these patients. It's a medical type facility where patients can get full care, but they can also be treated with medical cannabis, including THC.
Well, as we sit here, I'm in London today. You're not. As I sit
Right.
here in London, there are quite a few companies looking at listing on the London Stock Exchange who are medical cannabis companies. You've said you're about to list, or you're intending to list here. Why is Apollon different? What differentiates you from the other companies which people with cash that they want to invest in this new and exciting emerging sector of the stock market? What differentiates Apollon from the rest?
Well, of course, I don't know all of the companies that are listing over there in London right now, but my understanding is most of them are CBD companies. They're not THC companies. So they don't have the ability to do clinical trials with THC. They don't have the ability to treat patients with THC like we do and collect that data. And what makes us different is, again, we're a federally legal facility. We are controlling every aspect of our production, from cultivation right straight through to patient treatment. We have a medical team of very qualified doctors. We have neurosurgeons, we have oncologists, palliative care specialists, surgeons, general practitioners that all work with us that have been trained specifically in cannabinoid medicine. And then we also are looking at doing genomic work where we will look at the human genome, we draw blood on these patients, and we can determine what is the right treatment based on their genotype, which is what's being done in cancer therapy with chemotherapy and immunotherapy. They look and triage patients based on their human genome. We're doing that type of work as well. And in addition, we are using artificial intelligence to create the formulations that are correct. Again, that's my background for many, many years, and I have more than 40 patents on artificial intelligence. And I can tell you that what we are able to do is look at the patient data and look at the diseases and try to then, using the AI, figure out what is the right combination of cannabinoids and terpenes and flavonoids that should be in a formulation.
Okay.
And it's very specific. I will tell you, for example, we treat triple negative breast cancer different than we treat estrogen receptor positive breast cancer, based on different cannabinoid formulations, different terpene profiles, et cetera.
Okay. Okay, so we have Apollon, a company which is unique in its licensing to use THC, an operation in Jamaica, and lots of expertise in treating cancers and other diseases. And am I right in thinking, Dr. Barnhill, that when you actually become listed on the London market, you'll be one of the, if not the only, company which is licensed to do research with THC?
That is what I have been told. And that is very important because THC is a critical component of medical cannabis. If you're going to be treating patients, particularly cancer patients and other types of patients with medical cannabis, you simply can't ignore the value of THC in these formulations. And so I know there are a lot of companies that work with CBD only. And in most cases, it's because they're only allowed to work with CBD. But you cannot discount the importance of THC when you're talking about treating medical patients with cannabis.
Well, thank you for that. Good luck with the listing process. It probably take a few weeks. And as we say over here, the lifeblood of all small companies is news flow. So
Yes.
looking ahead a little bit, once Apollon is listed on the market, what can we expect from you after you've listed?
Well, you can expect a lot of news flow, and because there's a lot of exciting things going on with Apollon. You can expect news regarding the expansion of our cultivation facilities, production of oils, and expanding our manufacturing. We will be getting GMP certification for export out of Jamaica, which we are allowed to do because of our licenses. To other countries in Europe and including in the UK, we hope soon. You can expect more news on some of our new discoveries, our new patented formulations that we've come up with using the AI. We have 7 formulations that we currently use, which have been shown in 3D cell culture recently to be very effective in treating cancers, various cancers, and you'll see some information and publications coming out about that. And you will see some news on our expansion into franchises in other parts of the world where people want to bring our medical protocols and our medical products into treatment facilities where THC is legal in other parts of the world. So we have a lot of exciting things going on. We're very excited about the expansion, and the more patients that we can treat, the more we can rely on the AI as well. And we also are looking to get into personalized medicine. I brought that up a little bit with the human genome, but we are also looking at doing cultures like the 3D cultures I just mentioned, where someone could send us a biopsy of their cancer, and we could try our formulations against that biopsy in 3D cell culture and put them on the correct formulation for them. So in other words, instead of the correct formulation for pancreatic cancer or breast cancer, we hope to be able to move into getting to the correct formulation of Mr. Jones' specific prostate cancer or Ms. Smith's specific breast cancer. That's another exciting area that we're moving into in the very near term.
Personalized treatment.
Personalized treatment with medical cannabis, just like is done with chemotherapy and immunotherapy. We're bringing this level of care into the medical cannabis world.
That was Dr. Stephen Barnhill, Managing Director of Apollon, and as we heard, very active in the treatment of cancers and other diseases, and the only company which is licensed to use THC, the psychoactive element of cannabis, in developing those medicines and those treatments for cancers. So, if you're at all interested in investing in this emerging space on the London Stock Exchange of cannabis companies, Apollon stands out from the crowd. That's it from Blytheway Business News for today. Thanks for watching.